With the new Mass Effect installment getting closer and closer to its launch date, the hype train for the wait is getting exceedingly heavier, and with it comes an abundant amount of both questions and expectations for the game. Most of us can already recognize some of the gameplay flaws throughout the trilogy, and while some of them have been improved upon or entirely removed, there are a few that still made it to Mass Effect 3. Some of them we probably hope Mass Effect Andromeda can fix. So without further ado, here are 10 problems that Mass Effect Andromeda can fix. Whether it's crossing arms and resting on one leg, holding your hands up to your face and looking down, randomly pointing for no reason, or the notorious sudden turn and instantly exit to the side, these animations became more and more noticeable throughout the trilogy, and even more frequently in the unpolished third installment to the franchise, Mass Effect 3. Thankfully, Mass Effect Andromeda has been built from the ground up with the Frostbite 3 engine, which should mean that a new plethora of polished animations might be present when we join in on a conversation. Revisiting Mass Effect, most of us will probably have a rough time getting adjusted to the rough-edged combat and cover system that plagued Mass Effect. While Mass Effect 2 greatly improved both on the combat and cover mechanics, Mass Effect 3 polished things up and turned the gameplay experience into a more cover-to-cover shooter experience, especially when playing on higher difficulties. But the cover and combat system definitely had its flaws. Now, it has already been confirmed that Mass Effect Andromeda will have an entirely new cover system, similar to Metal Gear Solid 5 and the latest Tomb Raider. It also feels like the combat experience should also flow efficiently with the new cover system. That being said, who's to say that the new system will provide a fix to the trilogy? I think most of us can agree that the trilogy's quest system was pretty lacking when it came to the galaxy map. Games like Fallout 4, The Witcher 3, and GTA 5 had a pretty simple yet effective map system that made quest picking a hell of a lot simpler. To top it off, they also have a mini-map feature that additionally makes free roaming a lot more satisfying. With Mass Effect Andromeda having a bigger focus on player exploration, an expected and an undoubtedly begged for mini-map feature with an easily navigatable map will surely make our experience more enjoyable. The galaxy map for Andromeda also appears to be an identical cousin to the trilogy, but hopefully we won't have to sit through a long loading screen every single time we FTL jump. Sure, being able to teleport across the battlefield and land a hard blow with your biotic charge is fun and all, but in the Mass Effect trilogy, you were restricted to using the same class powers over and over again, until you either started a new playthrough or transferred your Shepard. This kind of restriction can get boring over time, but luckily for us, Mass Effect Andromeda will no longer have those limitations. That being said, a gameplay overhaul such as this still might have some flaws and restrictions. We will just have to wait and see when further information is revealed or when Andromeda launches. Throughout the trilogy, we definitely had a fair share of boss battle experience on the battlefield, but when it came to the actual final boss fight, the battle between the protagonist and antagonist throughout the trilogy was seriously lacking. Saren was the only real closest final boss fight we actually had in the trilogy, despite a human reaper that was easily predictable and easily killable. Let's not even talk about the mess Mass Effect 3 had when it came down to the only final boss battle we desperately needed, but instead, we went face to face with a shielded marauder. Yeah, nice one. Usually when you purchase a role-playing game, getting a full conversation with a choice in your dialogue is expected, but in Mass Effect 3, you had the ability to choose 3 different single-player modes, ranging from a more combat-leveled experience to a more RPG conversational experience, which was pretty degrading compared to the older installments. Mass Effect is known for its character dialogue and freedom of choice, but if new players to the franchise ever arrive, and they're unsure what mode to choose from, they could end up with a shitty experience if they expected a full-on Mass Effect playthrough on action mode. Even with each new Mass Effect installment increasing the options of player customizability, armor, patterns, and clothing just felt a bit lacking, especially if you did not purchase the Deluxe Edition, which had a bit more civilian clothing to choose from that you unfortunately could not customize individually, but you should not have to pay extra for more customizable clothing or armor. Mass Effect is greatly known for its alien romance, and although it may seem like a perfect system already, it's actually quite a bit distant from reality. Progressing a relationship in Mass Effect is as easy as saying the nice thing over and over again until you trigger the sex scene. Despite what some people might suggest, usually in real life, it's not entirely that easy to trigger such a romantic event. The new dialogue system will increase more conversational dialogue options. Hopefully this will allow people to pick the right dialogue depending on the character you're trying to romance. For example, romancing a Krogan might not be as simple as saying the polite seductive words. For the time, the linear role-playing use of conversation dialogue options worked pretty well, but when it comes to a better customizable role-playing game, being able to add additional human aspects to our dialogue choices will get us closer and closer to the real thing, essentially granting more freedom to the player and successfully kicking us away from an old system that's getting stale. Thankfully, Mass Effect Andromeda will have more dialogue options to choose from, but who's to say it will actually work out effectively at the end of the day? We all remember the horribly painted images that will forever stay in our heads. From originally 3 different endings, the notorious RGB colors we're used to seeing in day-to-day life would later be the colors we can no longer take seriously once we had finished the trilogy. Mass Effect 3 was one of gaming's greatest examples of how to not end your episodic trilogy, and sadly, this event will forever be stained on BioWare's imaginary t-shirt. Even after the Extended Endings DLC, which showed how much BioWare was aware of their fuck-up to the trilogy, the damage had already been done. Looking back to Mass Effect 3 as an example, hopefully BioWare will choose our endings wisely, because if not 1 but 2 letdowns to the franchise makes way, I'm afraid the franchise might officially be finished. So that was 10 problems Mass Effect Andromeda can fix. Hopefully we will see some massive improvement to the new installment, because most of us fans are betting on it. So what do you guys and gals think about the 10 problems I talked about? And what problem do you find more important to fix? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit that like button. And if you're new to the channel and want to join the club, make sure to hit that subscribe button and hit the notification bell. Anyhow,
I should go.